Wolfie. Today I'll be reading When It's 6 O'Clock in San Francisco. A trip through time zones. I got this at the library. And I got a library card today. Another one. It's 6 o'clock in San Francisco. Time to get up, Mom calls from downstairs. Jared shivers, feeling the cold wood floor against his bare feet. Lifting a corner of the curtain, he peeks out of the window at the fingers of fog reaching over the hills. He smells bacon cooking and his stomach starts to rumble. Jumping the last 2 steps, he heads towards the kitchen calling, "Is the cocoa ready yet?" When it's 6 o'clock in San Francisco, it's 9 o'clock in Montreal. Genevieve squints up at the tall buildings as she and Papa emerge from the metro. A faint chiming sounds in the distance. "Was that the bell?" she asks. "We must hurry." Grabbing Papa's hand, she starts to run toward the school gates. "Wait, Genevieve," Papa calls. "The sidewalk is very—" But the rest is lost as they slip and slide on a wide patch of ice. Bang! Down goes Papa. Thump! Genevieve lands next to him. "Are you okay?" Genevieve asks with a worried look. Papa sits up, laughing, as they sprawl on the sidewalk. "Très bien," he says, and gives Genevieve a kiss on both cheeks. When he is back on his feet, he reaches down to help her up. "But now let's hurry a little more slowly." When it's 6 o'clock in San Francisco, it's 11 o'clock in Santiago. Elena's tongue sticks in the corner of her mouth as she rubs the math problem with her eraser. Blowing the pink shreds of rubber off her desk, she notices a crumpled piece of paper at her feet. "Psst," hisses Maria, 2 rows over. Elena turns to look. "Read it." Maria's lips move, but there is no sound in the quiet classroom. Bending to retrieve the note, Elena hears a chair scrape at the front of the room. "Elena," Maestra Portilla's voice booms, "is there something you would like to share with the class?" She looks like my grandma. When it's 6 o'clock in San Francisco, it's 2 o'clock in London. Oliver's knees are red with cold, but he's running so hard he doesn't feel it. His feet pound the grass, the ball spinning with each kick toward the goal that's looming straight ahead. But as soon as he's close enough to shoot, a tangle of legs blocks his path. "Through," his teammate calls from across the field. Oliver kicks the ball in his direction. Seconds later, it's whizzing into the net. "Goal! Goal!" his teammates cry. High fives all around. The bell echoes across the yard. Game over. The boys pick up their gear and head slowly back to class. When it's 6 o'clock in San Francisco, it's 4 o'clock in Cape Town. The rain falls hard and fast, and Cozy dashes from tarp to tarp as he winds through the stalls in the green market. Umama has sent him on an errand on the way home from school. Kosi stops to run his finger over some new CDs. "Do you have any money today?" the man behind the table asked. "Today I have many rand," he answered, "but some are to buy washing powder for Umama." "Chew quickly, my boy," the man says with a wink. "Best not to keep laundry or mothers waiting." When it's 6 o'clock in San Francisco, it's 7 o'clock in Lahore. Rashida's eyes water and her tongue burns. She reaches for the basket of chapati on the loaded dinner table. "Too hot for you," her father teases. "Mama's dal is spicier than most cooks in Pakistan." "No, it is good," she answers, using the flatbread to ease the fire. As her father takes a large mouthful of stew, his face reddens, and he starts to cough. Rashida passes the cucumber raita to him. "The yogurt will cool the burning. Hand over your mouth." She glances at her father and tries very hard not to laugh. When it's 6 o'clock in San Francisco, it's 10 o'clock in Beijing. Minyu watches his breath sparkle in the frosty air. The ride home from his grandparents' house is short but cold. Balanced on the back of the bicycle, Minyu uses his father's broad back as protection from the wind. At least it's not snowing, his mother says, pedaling beside them. The stars shimmer like icicles as they peek around the tops of the buildings. Bah, I'm tired, Minyu calls. Hold on tight, his father answers. We'll be home soon. Pressing his head against his father's warm coat, he watches the street rush by under the spinning tires. I like the illustration on this. When it's 6 o'clock in San Francisco, it's 1 o'clock in Sydney. It's in Australia. Akira should be asleep, but instead she's listening to her father's footsteps on the stairs. Her eyes fly open as she hears the front door creak. Daddy, can I have some water? She calls into the darkness. Of course, he whispers from the hallway. A moment later, he tiptoes into the bedroom. A glass of cool water in his hand, hot and thirsty, she drinks it in one gulp. Daddy bends down to kiss her goodnight. Just back from his shift in the taxi, he smells of car exhaust and gasoline. Akira loves these smells because they mean he is home from work at last. Good night, Daddy, she says softly, half asleep already. He takes the empty glass and slips quietly out of the room. When it's 6 o'clock in San Francisco, it's 4 o'clock in Honolulu. Kaylana rolls over in bed and watches the shadows in the thin line of light peeking under her door. She hears muffled voices and smells strong coffee, grabbing her blanket. She opens the door and squints into bright light. Oh, baby, sorry we woke you, Mommy says, glancing at Daddy. Why is your surfboard in the kitchen? Kaylana asks him. Waima Bay has beautiful waves right now, he tells her. I want to go get some surfing in before work. You can stay up until Daddy leaves. Then it's back to bed, Mommy says, kissing her on the forehead. Kaylana climbs into her lap. She wonders how to convince Mommy to let her stay up for good. So much all time. It's 6 o'clock in San Francisco. Jared kicks his feet under a table as he wraps his cold fingers around the mug of hot cocoa. Peanut butter or bologna? Mom asks, grabbing his lunchbox from the top of the fridge. Bologna, please, he answers. The ringing telephone pierces the quiet morning. Must be Grandma, his mother says, reaching for the phone. She's the only one who calls this early. But it's not that early at Grandma's house, Jared says, blowing the steam off his cocoa. When it's 6 o'clock in San Francisco, it's 9 o'clock in New York City. And this is all about timekeeping zones. For Jaren and Timon and their cousins around the world. To my wonderful wife Olivia and our two amazing boys, Sake and Matthias, with love. When it's 6 o'clock in San Francisco, a trip through time zones by Cynthia Jaynes Omololu, and illustrated by Randy DuBurke.